What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Zach Costello Show. Before we get started, if you all don't mind, as usual, please hit that like button. Please make sure you guys are subscribed. If you've been subscribed, I ask that you just double check that you still are. If you'd like to level up your support of the channel and become a member, please do so and join us every Monday morning for our members only show. It's a little bit more laid back, more of a hangout, ask me anything type of setup. So if you're interested in that and able to level up your support of the channel, I appreciate that as well. Okay, we have a good amount to get through today, and I want to get rolling. All right. I don't have a ton of time today, and it took me a long time to prepare because there's a lot here. There's a lot here. Obviously, we have been talking about the Candace Owens, Andrew Wilson debate on the Charlie Kirk assassination and the fallout from that debate, which has spurred more debates and more conversations about all of this. So particularly Brett Weinstein, Jimmy Dore, and Viva Fry were all on a debate/conversation together, and there was a lot there. This conversation was chock full with different details and doubts and suspicions and talk about persuasive versus compelling evidence. It was very good. So there's a little bit of that I want to cover because, like I said, there's a lot of good, interesting information there as it relates to this whole Charlie Kirk assassination picture. And then there was also another debate, maybe a somewhat smaller debate, between a gentleman named Tim Gordon and Rob Noor, I think is how you pronounce his name. Rob Noor was the fact checker at the Candace Owens Andrew Wilson debate, and he's been now challenging people to debates, and Tim Gordon took it up, and the topic of this debate was, is there a compelling reason to think that Israel was involved or instigated the murder of Charlie Kirk? Rob Noor versus Tim Gordon. There are a couple very interesting clips that I want to show you guys from this as well. All of this just relates to this question that many of us are wrestling with nowadays of, is this Charlie Kirk assassination case bigger than just Tyler Robinson? All right. And that is obviously a critical and very important question that a lot of us are wrestling with, and one that I think is, well, I think it's a reasonable question for sure. And I believe strongly, and I think that especially after what we go through today, you are going to see that, in fact, yeah, I believe there is certainly compelling, convincing, persuasive evidence that this Charlie Kirk assassination case is bigger than just Tyler Robinson. Okay? Let's get into it. And what we are going to start with today is kind of picking up from where we left off yesterday. You guys might remember that yesterday I covered, coming off the weekend, Andrew Wilson. He dropped those Telegram messages from Charlie Kirk communicating with somebody on his security team that he was worried that the left was going to kill him. I understand there are many people making the argument that the messages are fake, and they're making compelling arguments about those messages being fake. I think in particular, Danks did a pretty good summary of how he could recreate that message thread using AI, and he did it fairly easily from what I understand. I am undecided on whether or not the messages are fake or not, so I'm just granting, let's grant for the sake of argument, as we did yesterday, that the messages are not fake, that they're real, okay? Charlie actually said this to his security team. Now, regardless of who he said it to, I know that Baron Coleman has put out that he thinks the messages may have been sent to Brian Harpole. There's also the side that says they were sent to Dan Flood. In any case, if they were sent to Brian Harpole, that is really interesting because Brian Harpel said on the Sean Ryan show that he did not get any communication from Charlie or Dan Flood about any concerns that anybody was going to kill him. He said that verbatim on the Sean Ryan show. That means that he would have been lying there. Okay. If they were sent to Dan Flood, it's a bad look on Dan Flood because Dan Flood obviously didn't relay any of the things that he was saying to Charlie down to his security team. So I brought up a clip yesterday, and I want you guys to see this clip. All right, this is Andrew Kolvet, and this is on March 23rd. This was in the aftermath of Joe Kent resigning as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. And this is when Andrew Kolvet comes out and confirms that it was him who submitted the text message thread of Charlie saying that he was going to leave the pro-Israel cause. This is Kolvet confirming that he is the one that sent that message to Joe Kent because he considered it relevant evidence. And I want you to listen to something that Andrew Kolvet says here. Take a listen.
Or we're not interested in the truth. The actual fact of the matter is that behind this, yes, in a spirit of looking at every lead, turning over every stone, we wanted everybody that needed to know anything that we knew. Not just, I mean, and by the way, we've been accused of not being interested in the truth.
And just to remind people what this is referring to, this is after Charlie's murder, there were text messages that from a private group chat that were made public and were used to, frankly, kick off the big conspiracy theory that we've run into over and over again, which is that Israel or the Jews had Charlie murdered.
Yes. So,
which we do not believe.
Which we do not believe. But we have been accused of trying to, or we're not interested in the truth. The actual fact of the matter is that behind the scenes, we have given everything we know to give, every single piece of information. This was one of them. I was told I could trust Joe Kent. I provided the screen grabs to Joe Kent. And
we provided everything. Okay? We provided everything because we wanted every stone uncovered. Let him repeat that here.
Turning over every stone. We wanted everybody that needed to know anything that we knew. Not just, I mean, and by the way,
we wanted everyone to know everything that we knew.
Wait, we've been accused of not being, yes. So,
which we do not believe.
Which we do not believe. But
we suspected early on.
We have been accused of trying to, or we're not interested in the truth. The actual fact of the matter is that behind the scenes, we have given everything we know to give, every single piece of information. This was one of them.
Behind the scenes, we've given everything that we know. We've given every piece of information. Andrew Kolvet submitted the text message thread of Charlie saying that he was going to leave the pro-Israel cause to Joe Kent for this reason that he is giving to you right here, because they wanted everything out there. Everything that they knew, they wanted it submitted. Every piece of information, every stone uncovered, blah, 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 blah. Andrew Kolvet also, let me remind you, in the moments immediately following Charlie Kirk's assassination, called Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson to warn them, to tell them to be careful or to watch out. And then he also told Candace Owens, according to Candace, that it was supposed to be her. Who, let me ask you guys, who do you think Andrew Kolvet was suspicious of in the immediate aftermath of Charlie being killed? Who do you think Andrew Kolvet was suspicious of in the immediate aftermath right away? Who? And then let me ask you this. If Andrew Kolvet and the Turning Point USA team and Erika Kirk, who is the CEO of the organization. So, yes, these decisions do fall on her. So, when I title the video, Andrew Kolvet and Erika Kirk need to answer for this, I mean that specifically because those two ultimately are, Erika's the CEO, Andrew Kolvet's the spokesperson. Why, if they're submitting this text message thread to Joe Kent as evidence, because they are trying to turn over every stone and behind the scenes submit every piece of information, why then did they not also submit the message that Andrew Wilson just released?
This is just one piece. Drip, drip, you mother. But his final concern about who was going to kill him, he wasn't worried about Israel killing him. He wasn't worried about France killing him. He wasn't worried about anybody except the left killing him. I'm somewhat worried about the left trying to kill me, he said. Why is this important? Because this was after that famous, I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, which, by the way, they had a Zoom meeting after that where they discussed how to make better talking points on the Israeli thing. That's what
Andrew Kolvet submitted that. Andrew Kolvet submitted that to Joe Kent. Not us, man. Not us.
they talked about in the Zoom call afterwards. This date right here, September 9th, 2025, day before he died. And what these people have done.
The text message thread that Andrew Wilson published, which was provided to him by Turning Point USA, that text message thread was not submitted to Joe Kent. That message thread was not submitted to the NCTC as relevant evidence. And you might say, well, Zach, they didn't know. They didn't know that it was there. Joe Kent resigned from the NCTC on March 17th, 2026. All of this conversation started coming out in March. So are you meaning to tell me that nobody checked Charlie's Telegram messages from September 10th through March 17th? Andrew Kolvet just said he was submitting every piece of information to turn over every single stone. But he decided not to submit the message thread of Charlie saying that he was afraid that the left was going to kill him. Why wouldn't he have submitted both? Why wouldn't all two or three of the message threads have been submitted into evidence if they were concerned about a number of different threats to Charlie? That's my question to Andrew Kolvet and Turning Point USA. Where was this message thread? Why wasn't it submitted as well? If we're concerned about Israel, if we're concerned about a domestic left-wing violent group, why are these messages, why is all relevant evidence not being submitted? You all wonder why so many people are growing increasingly frustrated with the way that you all handle things. First and foremost, I still can't wrap my head around why you all on the Charlie Kirk show, Andrew Kolvet, Blake Neff, Erika Kirk, why you've chosen to this drip strategy with Andrew Wilson, as opposed to just being transparent and letting everybody else, like just doing it yourself, letting everybody know from the Charlie Kirk show these details. Like, if you truly wanted people to think that you were trying to find the truth in good faith, you would just be transparent. You would just be honest about these things. Say what you want about the Charlie Kirk assassination. What has become crystal clear is the absolute botched job of Turning Point USA, Erika Kirk, Andrew Kolvet in handling the PR of this Charlie Kirk assassination fallout. It's an all-time bad PR campaign. And I know we've talked about, well, maybe there's a group behind that's really trying to sabotage someone because it's just so incredibly bad. like maybe Johnny Moore and Kairos Company they're like trying to do it. They're like trying to sabotage Erika Kirk because it's just so bad. But it is. Speaking of them not being transparent, of further evidence that could help the cause, I want to now move into this conversation or debate with Brett Weinstein, Viva Fry, and Jimmy Dore. There's so much here. This is so good. But Brett Weinstein begins to talk here about he's talking about the exploding microphone, but it then goes into more of Joe Kent and why he was stopped. And it then goes into the microphone as being evidence. And then it goes into the FBI. And then it goes into the Hamptons. And then it goes into the bigger questions regarding Tyler Robinson. So this segment of this conversation is very good. And I want you all to listen to it. And I'll stop it when I have comments. Take a listen here.
All right. Now, I will say, as for the Rode mic, and actually let me back up before I get to the Rode mic. Let me say, I also think that in having this discussion, we are hamstrung by the fact that it has become the alternative hypotheses of the crime have become synonymous with one person, right? And this is not about Candace to me. In fact, I think the point is the whole crime, it's fine for Candace to do what she does, but we now have the sense in public that the alternative theory is synonymous with what Candace is saying. And I would say, actually, I don't even follow Candace. I'm a guy with a scientific toolkit who is trying to wield the proper tools, that is to say, competing hypotheses for a pattern that we all observed for which we don't have complete evidence. And I don't like that every time I raise this question, the first thing that comes back at me is Candace said this, Candace said that. You know, that is not healthy. We have to have as many perspectives as there are. And the one test of those perspectives is how well they predict evidence that we don't yet have. So that brings me to the Rode microphone hypothesis of the crime.
So before he continues with that, I like that he just said that, because yes, and you guys all know here, I consider what Candace has done throughout this Charlie Kirk assassination case to have been very valuable. But I think what's important is that, because you hear in a lot of these debates now, or you hear a lot of the conversation around the Charlie Kirk assassination case, is that, well, oh, everybody's in the Candace cult, like Candace and her ilk. They all love to use that term. People have observed a lot of these irregularities with their own eyes. Okay? This is a logical conclusion that many, many people have reached. Not just because people are following Candace Owens. All right? Obviously, Candace is the top dog in the Charlie Kirk assassination case, but that does not mean that everybody who is concerned or has a dissenting opinion on the Tyler Robinson narrative is just some follower or fan of Candace Owens. People can think for themselves and come to these conclusions themselves. And the reason I think this is important to say is because, again, in a lot of these conversations, you just see like, oh, because you doubt the official Tyler Robinson narrative, you must just be a cult follower of Candace. It's like, no, that's not how this works. So I'm glad that Brett Weinstein explained that here.
Hold on, actually, Brett, if you can stop there just for 1 second, just to go back where you say scrubbing the scene, also carries with it a connotation of improperness.
No, I specifically don't mean that. Look, first of all, I've spent a good fraction of my adult life in a university. I can imagine at one of the places that I was either a student or teaching, that a notorious crime has taken place. There's an immediate meeting of the administration, maybe the faculty, and the question is, how exactly do we go back to being a university, right? What if there's a blood splatter somewhere, right? And so the idea will be, okay, well, what we need to do is as quickly as possible make the space where this took place be an area that there's nothing to find, right? It is inherently going to be a place that people go, but the point is it has to take on its new form quickly. I can imagine that discussion, and I can imagine it at a effectively maintenance and janitorial level, that there's a whole lot that you would just decide to do. You would effectively want to freshen, revise, not, you don't want people digging up soil. And I think, you keep mentioning, I've seen you mentioned it once here, the biohazard of the soil. I don't believe there was a biohazard at all.
They're bringing this up because they just finished talking about the paving over of the crime scene, excuse me. I didn't include that part, but that is to give you guys some context of what they're talking about here. They're talking about the covering up of the crime scene, how it happened last minute, how it happened with the clue, as Jimmy Dore said, that needed to keep their mouth shut. They excavated 10 inches of soil. That led to them talking about the exploding mic, because they needed to remove any of the potential residue or anything like that that would have allowed that evidence to have been found. So that's what they're talking about here. They then move into, and what Brett Weinstein brings up here is a better point about the exploding mic as it relates to, again, Turning Point USA and Erika Kirk and this evidence that they're not providing to us.
Right, to the extent that blood may have landed on the ground. There's no biohazard issue after a very short period of time. But I can also imagine people digging. As long as it's not paved, you can imagine people digging for something, the way people will have a moon rock from the moon landing. People would want some memento of this crime, and you want to just prevent that from happening. So I can imagine that occurring. But I can't imagine not protecting this crime scene. And given that the crime scene was compromised, I cannot imagine anything other than an obsessive effort to try to reconstruct exactly what was there, including the SD cards, all camera angles, to figure out why it is that there was an inability to broadcast during the immediate instance of the event. There's lots of stuff that I didn't see. And I would say, I have a kind of an informal list of dogs that didn't bark, right? There's the evidence we have, and then there's the evidence that we don't have. And let me give you an example. Or maybe I should let you respond to that, Viva, since I cut you off.
Well, I'll say one thing. To the extent you're using scrub as in to purify and not to alter, then fine, or to tamper. When Jimmy says, what they could have done is taped off the crime scene and then cordoned it off until the defendant gets a defense, that would be, from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, that would be an anomalous treatment of a crime scene, to the point where everyone would say, this isn't how you do it. And the only reason they've done that is so they can go and purely, totally scrub the crime scene, modify it, falsify it, whatever. I don't know how many cases there have been where you indefinitely close off a crime scene until the defendant gets his defense team. And that's, at the time, you don't even have a defendant at that point, and you might never get one. So I think that would have been even more anomalous. And like I posited in my post, if they had done that, then the other people of the world would say, that's evidence of conspiracy. They've now had 2 months to scrub it and to falsify it and to plant the evidence that they wanted. So that wouldn't resolve anything.
Well, look, can I just respond and say that they did have a defendant, because Kash Patel had that Friday at 33 hours after that, he said, we got him. We got him. That's what he said. So they did have a defendant, and to Brett's point, from the moment it happened, the crime scene was contaminated immediately and continuously, right? And to the point where they're not even securing evidence. Like, why was his phone given back to Erika Kirk? Why was his necklace, which would be, you think, 100% evidence that should be controlled, is given back to her? Why was the bloody mic was given back to her so they could auction it off to make money? There's just so many, and people were allowed to take the SD cards. People were allowed to move the microphone. People were allowed to move the chair. Nobody was securing that thing whatsoever. And then the cop who goes up on the roof and finds the screwdriver, just mysteriously his body camera turns off, which is ridiculous. And then he doesn't even know who the other cop was on the roof with him, except we were able to find that out like in half a day. But he didn't. He hadn't been able to find it out for 11 months or whatever. So they allowed it to be completely contaminated, and also the evidence. So these are all big, to me, these are big red flags that show me that there's a cover-up. And the biggest thing that shows me there's a cover-up, I forgot to mention this, was that I just interviewed Joe Kent on my show on Friday, and he said he was the head of counterterrorism, and he was looking in to see if there was some foreign involvement in this, the biggest assassination in my lifetime, right? So the biggest assassination in my lifetime, you'd think they would try to treat that place a little bit special, but no, okay, I'll go. But Joe Kent said that he was stopped from investigating it. So it's obvious that the FBI and the cops are not actually investigating it, and that the one guy who's at the tippy top of government of investigating stuff wanted to, and he was stopped. Not only did he tell me he was stopped, he told me who stopped him. Kash Patel. Kash Patel stopped him. So to me, that's, again, right there, this is just crazy, obvious cover-up. Oh, I'll throw it back to you, Brett.
Yeah, well,
and Joe Kent told me, you guys, that he was stopped specifically because the reason that Kash Patel gave him is because Utah already had Tyler Robinson in custody. Okay? So what that means is that they did not want to interfere with Utah's case. They didn't want to interfere with Utah's case against Tyler Robinson. That is why Joe Kent was told to stop. That's why the NCTC was not told to stop. I understand that language might get us in trouble. Joe Kent, as the NCTC is supposed to do, gathered, monitored, analyzed leads that they then passed on to the investigative authorities like the FBI to pursue, and Kash Patel said no, they were not going to do that. And the reason that they did not do that is because Utah already had Tyler Robinson in custody, and they didn't want to interfere or damage that case. They did not want to interfere with the lone wolf narrative. That's how I see it. But what I love that Jimmy Dore just did there is he just named all of those pieces of evidence that we do not have. Charlie Kirk's cell phone, the necklace, the Rode microphone, and importantly, the Rode microphone audio, which is what they get to hear. The SD cards that Terrell Farnsworth took out of the camera. It's important to note that nothing in Terrell Farnsworth's statement said that he turned over the SD cards. He gave them a flash drive, Google Drive files, which means that those files would have already been uploaded to a computer and then handed over. That footage that Candace Owens released of Terrell Farnsworth last week shows Terrell Farnsworth messing around on his computer in the back right after the assassination took place. She released extended footage of that, and I have the question, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I have the question of, because it's possible to do this, For all of us who are familiar with how to upload video or footage from an SD card, from a camera into a computer, you take out that SD card, you plug it into the computer, you get the file, you drag it onto your desktop, it downloads. You can go then onto that SD card and you can then wipe it. You can wipe whatever was on that SD card. You can erase the disk. You go to disk utility on Mac, you can erase it. This is how you do it if an SD card gets full. Is there any proof that Terrell Farnsworth did not wipe that SD card? Where's the raw footage? Which would have wiped the raw footage? Like, these are all very important pieces of evidence that were not collected. And that's insane. That's crazy. The lead into this conversation was about the paving over of the crime scene, which happened abnormally on a Sunday in Utah with devoutly religious people. We don't normally work on Sunday, but we were told, with some brothers, as the guy who owned the paving company, to come do it for a paving emergency. I've laughed because I've heard people say this. The first paver emergency ever. We have a paver emergency.
I agree with much of what you just said, and this is what I'm responding to, is that what I see is we do not have an FBI. And in the absence of an FBI, what you have is this Keystone Cop stuff, which, were there a conspiracy, would be a feature, not a bug, right? The contamination of the crime scene is useful if what you're trying to do is confuse the question, leaving only the lone gunman hypothesis standing. So I see many of those precise anomalies. And I want to point to one. You guys can tell me, maybe you're tracking some thread that I'm not. But one of the dogs that didn't bark in this case for me is the Rode microphone. Now, I heard the hypothesis that it had been used to kill Charlie, that it had exploded. I, of course, made the connection to the pager attack on Hezbollah. But in thinking about that hypothesis of the crime, I realized, I think someone else could point out that I've done the logic incorrectly, but that hypothesis of the crime does not add up given the technology that we are told to imagine might have been used. In other words, a shaped charge would have behaved very differently than what we saw. We would have had smoke, the equal and opposite reaction of the exploding mic would have been visible in some way other than a disturbance of the shirt. So I convinced myself that can't be the explanation given the technology that we imagine might have been used there. Doesn't mean somebody doesn't have another technology that cancels those forces the way a compensator cancels the muzzle rise on a rifle. But I don't know what the technology would be. And so I have to demote that hypothesis because it does not comport with the evidence we did see. On the other hand,
see, and again, that's fair enough. I mean, these are, I guess, valid criticisms of the exploding mic theory. Now, again, what he just alluded to, though, was the technology that he might be unfamiliar with. And I know that, like, someone like John Bray has done extensive work on the type of technology regarding this exploding mic that provides an alternative explanation to the doubts that Brett Weinstein just discussed. Okay? But again, he's thinking out loud. And again, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. That's why I think these conversations are fair. And I think that they're good because, again, when you question these things, it allows you to sharpen your argument. But we'll let him continue here because this is when he makes the really good point. Regardless of what you think about the exploding microphone theory, we need to look at this microphone. We like the microphone audio. That is such an important aspect of this. Listen.
Here's the part. Here's the dog that didn't bark. Where's the damn mic?
Where is it?
Where's the damn mic? And here's why that.
Where is it? Where is the microphone?
Matters. So that mic does two things. That mic broadcasts a Wi-Fi signal that goes presumably to one of the cameras that's running. It sends that feed right into the camera so that they stitch up the video and the audio stitch up together. But it also records a 32-bit float file on the device itself in case the Wi-Fi fails. That piece of evidence, that file, would be absolutely vital in either proving that the shot came from where they said it came from or disproving it. That file is an incredibly powerful piece of evidence, not only because it records the sound from the precise location of Charlie's body, but because 32-bit float contains a tremendous amount of resolution. In other words, the amount that could be recovered from that file that would allow you to do a detailed sonic analysis is tremendous. So the question is, maybe they have it. Maybe they've analyzed that file, but we've heard nothing about it. And I don't know what to make of glass shards. I don't know what to make of the disturbance of the shirt, but I do find the absence of that device utterly conspicuous, and it hasn't gotten enough attention, in my opinion, maybe because people assume it exploded.
Well, it's interesting. You know, in every cover-up, you're going to want to have the useful noise, which is going to distract people from the actual cover-up with nonsense. And, you know, in as much as people misunderstood my drawing a comparison to Sandy Hook, there are still people who out there seriously, you know, put forward that Charlie Kirk didn't die, that it was CGI, that, you know, they hauled him off and he's in witness protection. And there are people who seriously entertain that idea. The question is, at what point do you just write off the patently insane ideas? And at what point do the people who might want to muddy the waters to actually cover up the cover-up promote, entertain, or legitimize those ideas?
Yeah.
No, because every operation has this.
Yeah.
And it's true that there has been no confirmation as to where the microphone is. It's not immediately write off the exploding mic. The exploding microphone theory is based on negative evidence. It can never be disproven because all that it's predicated on is a 30-06 didn't do it because it never does it. And therefore, that must be it because shirts don't move this way. And I saw some broken glass in the car, as if after the thing goes off, you're going to have broken glass that's going to be in the car.
I don't agree with that statement. The exploding microphone isn't solely based off of negative evidence. While, like, okay, the 30-06 wound that we saw, again, highly unlikely. Some might even say impossible. I'm not going to say impossible. Highly unlikely, rare. The exploding microphone is not just based off of that fact alone. It's based off of shirt behavior, necklace behavior, and then if you've seen John Bray's analysis, it's based off of some audio analysis, which John is very, you know, he's done pretty extensive work on. And then he's also been able to, I think he's also used like a heat map. He's been able to slow down the video and you see what John claims to be the circuit board coming out of Charlie's shirt. John identified, I believe, the battery pack is what causes the wound in Charlie's neck. So the exploding microphone theory is not just based upon negative evidence from the gunshot wound in the 30-06 from that Losi Center rooftop. I just want to make that clear here. But Viva, to his credit, does actually make a good point that Jimmy Dore elaborates on here.
But it's true that you don't have the microphone. Where do you go from there? To entertain the idea that it was a shape-charged microphone exploding device because Israel did it with terrorist leaders in Hamas and the West Bank, or Gaza and the West Bank. The only reason they did it in that circumstance was because of a total inaccessibility of getting in there to do it with a sniper or with, you know, a more immediate manner. Why anyone thinks, all right, the Losi building roof was not covered. It was not protected. Why was it? It was the easiest access point. That's part of the conspiracy. And so they went with the most insanely elaborate, risky, not achieving the objective, easily traceable exploding microphone, as opposed to just getting a gunman on the roof. I mean, that's where I think you have conspiracy theories that are deliberately entertained, put forward, or promoted in order to distract from what the very cover-up might be, which is why that roof was left totally unsecured, and everything that flows from that. But Jimmy, sorry.
Yeah, that's it. That's
before Jimmy. I mean, to Viva's credit, that's an interesting point. That's an interesting argument to consider, in that the exploding microphone theory would just be to distract from the actual conspiracy or the cover-up from the easy accessibility to the rooftop. And this is where they start to get into the rooftop being left open, right? The rooftop essentially being potentially intentionally left open.
It's a great point. So they will often, the people who are doing a cover-up will promote crazy theories to discredit that there's a cover-up, right?
Or even better, half-truths.
Right.
Take out some important piece of information by fusing it to something insane.
Right. So I'll just very quickly.
Basically, when there's a cover up or a conspiracy, you flood the zone with a whole bunch of different conspiracies to just muddy the water to make the one that actually took place muddy, like so you can't see it clearly, essentially, is what they're saying. And it's an interesting argument.
Say why some people made that connection, right? Because of the way his T-shirt moved, right? That nobody, again, I'll go back to the SEAL Team 6 guy. He said, I've killed people, I've shot people for this country, and I've never seen the T-shirt move like that. And no one has actually explained how that happened. But the suspicious things that lead up to that theory is that there was a month before, there was that guy Harrison who tweeted out that I've been told by people close to Charlie Kirk, he's afraid that Israel's going to kill him if he turns on them. And then
that was Harrison Smith who tweeted out that he said that direct quote of the tweet, Harrison Smith posted on X that someone close to Charlie Kirk told me that if Charlie Kirk turns on Israel, they will kill him. Harrison Smith, actually, I believe just this past week, he clarified that he gave, because someone was like, you need to name names. It's time to name names. Because I believe, actually, in all fairness to Harrison, he said, I'm not going to name names, but someone close to Charlie Kirk told me that if Charlie Kirk turned on Israel, they will kill me. Someone said, well, it's time to name names at this point. And Harrison Smith said that he submitted who that was to the FBI. Harrison Smith submitted that to the FBI. Interestingly, you would do so because you consider that to be relevant evidence in this case. So understand this. Harrison Smith submitted that. He said, someone close to Charlie Kirk told me this. He then submits that evidence to the FBI. Andrew Kolvet has the text message thread of Charlie saying that he has no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. Andrew Kolvet submits that to the director of national counterterrorism because he's a trusted source at the time to them. I consider Joe Ken a trusted source still, but they consider Joe Ken a trusted source at the time. That's why they submitted that message thread to him, because they considered it relevant evidence. So that's two pieces of evidence that would have been what? That would have caused suspicion that Israel may have been involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination case. But you know what piece of evidence was not submitted? The one where Charlie said he was afraid of leftists that Andrew Wilson just released from Turning Point USA.
The meeting at the Hamptons, they denied that Bibi called in and offered him $150 million. That's been proven. They also denied that Charlie had the night before texted that I have no choice but to leave the Israel cause. I can no longer support the. So they lied about all that stuff. Benjamin Netanyahu comes out 39 minutes on the other side of the world in the middle of fighting a couple of wars. 39 minutes comes out and tweets about Charlie Kirk's assassination and the fact that they have a history of using this kind of device. So it's not like crazy that came out of nowhere. There's a lot of things that point that could be possible. And the fact what Brent just said, that where is it and where is that recording? Like, so that would be very helpful. The recording would still be on that mic. And where is that recording mic thing? So, and of course the shards of glass then also in that car lead to, they said, the first explanation was it was sunglasses got broken. Well, we've proven it wasn't sunglasses, right? Well, I'm not going to say proven. It's been lots of people who are experts in that say, no, that wouldn't be the sunglasses. They don't break like that. People who know about that. So that's why, so it didn't come out of nowhere, but I think what Viva's saying that, yeah, that's certainly the case. People who are doing a cover-up will often try to amplify a half-truth or so they could be easily knocked out. And then anybody who questions it looks like a mental case.
Well, yes. That's a critical piece of information. Anybody that then, again, you flood the zone with a whole bunch of different theories. Amplify them so that the actual cover-up, the actual conspiracy, the actual plan then also gets thrown into that. So then anybody questioning what the official narrative might be, like Tyler Robinson is the lone wolf shooter, they bunch everybody up to just make everybody look crazy. That's exactly what they are doing right now. That's exactly what's happening. Okay, that in itself, that in itself is evidence of a cover-up or of a conspiracy, right? Okay. Not only, so they talked about how the state of Israel and the suspicion, they started to hint on that. Israel has used similar methods before, right? But it's not only that Israel has used methods like the pagers that they used in southern Lebanon against Hezbollah terrorists. It's not only that they've done that. I want to now transition over to this other debate that was taking place between Tim Gordon and Rob Noor. Rob Noor is the fact checker that was there for, and I think on behalf of Andrew Wilson in the Candace Owens Andrew Wilson debate. He debated Tim Gordon. And in Tim Gordon's opening statement, he delivered some facts about how Israel assassinates people is what it comes down to. Targeted assassinations carried out by the state government of Israel. Listen to this. These stats are shocking.
And as you listen to my Israeli Charlie Nexus timeline, which constitutes my whole opening claim, I'm keeping it simple tonight. Keep just two humongous looming background considerations at the front of your brain, if you can. Keep them in the front, even though they're background considerations. First, numero uno, the young nation of Israel has a historically unprecedented, extraordinarily extensive, openly documented history of using targeted assassination operations, I'll be calling them TAOs, as a first option instrument of statecraft. It's unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the world. It's shocking, and it's unlike, like I said, any other country we've ever seen.
Like Candace Owens is the top dog in the Charlie Kirk assassination case, the state government of Israel, since their inception, is the top dog at targeted assassinations
in mankind's history. According to expert Ronan Bergman in the 2018 study, which is completely comprehensive, Rise and Kill First, Israeli intelligence and security services have conducted a mind-bending 2,700 targeted killings, frequently across borders. You can't even say these numbers. In, at the time, just 7 decades. It was exactly 70th birthday of Israel at the time when they
70 years, 2,700 targeted assassination operations.
Conducted this. So these guys, these Israeli guys, do just under 400 political assassinations per decade. No other country comes close, and no other country comes close to using TAOs for such petty reasons. Maybe later in the debate, I'll get into the common rationales that Israel has used TAOs. It's basically someone steps on their toe. Second big political consideration is that political assassinations only very rarely reduce to a solitary individual acting in complete isolation. Another recent comprehensive study, like the one in the first major thing you should keep at the front of your mind, was conducted at the Counterterrorism Center at West Point by Ari Perliger. And it shows that conspiracies, which militant normies train everyone to snigger at, even the use of the term conspiracies, constituted over 90% of all political assassinations from 1946 to 2013, which is a useful time period because 1946 is almost 1948. And it's well under 9% of this West Point study's completely comprehensive statistics show that of all the 758 successful TAOs that they looked at, the only very few, under 9%, were carried out by lone actors. Not lone gunmen, but lone actors. In the realm of TAOs, the possibility of a conspiracy is not at all an extraordinary hypothesis that investigators are entitled simply to assume away.
Yeah. So then that second stat is that 9%, only 9% of targeted assassinations included a lone gunman. Okay. So you have a nation a state government, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about like how Blake Neff refers to it. We're not talking about the Jews. We are talking about a specific state government that carries out these specific targeted operations and develops, this is important, develops technology in order to do this consistently. Okay, this is a nation that just behaves this way. This is what they do. And why do they do it? Well, they do it, of course, to ensure their own survival. This is why they do anything. This is why they do all of these things. Okay? This is why Bibi Netanyahu has waged this eighth front war, of which social media is a weapon of modern warfare in. Okay? He calls this eighth front war of winning over American support an existential requirement for the state government of Israel. So here's evidence, here's some evidence that causes suspicion of this foreign nation state because they specifically do these things. So when you have the highest profile American influencer who is most capable of galvanizing American support, especially amongst young people, for a specific cause, which he just proved to do in the U.S. presidential election of 2024 by running the ground game for President Trump, say that he is turning against you or actually start to turn against you by platforming people on his organization like Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, etc. He's receiving all sorts of heat and all sorts of pressure from the donors who do not want him to turn on this cause. Those donors are saying things like, you are an anti-Semite, God is going to remove his blessing from you. So when you have said individual that is making the decision to turn his support away from you, and this is an existential requirement for you, and in order to survive, you have carried out targeted assassination attempts on individuals, and that's your history, that's documented history. When you have the individual closest to Charlie Kirk, who was working with Charlie hip to hip, he was with Charlie when he was talking to young people across America about the Israel question, doing focus groups, and Andrew Kolvet sitting right next to him. Charlie sighing in relief, talking about young people express their criticism of how Israel just considers any criticism of itself anti-Semitic and how that makes things worse. Andrew Kolvet's right there seeing all this stuff, and then Charlie Kirk gets taken out, and the first thing that Andrew Kolvet does is he submits a text message thread of Charlie saying that he was going to leave the pro-Israel cause as relevant evidence to the director of the National Counterterrorism Center because he considered it relevant evidence. And per his own words, they wanted to release everything. They wanted every stone unturned. Andrew Kolvet telling Tucker Carlson, telling Candace Owens, the two biggest anti-Semites in America, right, that they need to watch out. Andrew Kolvet telling Candace Owens it should have been her. Harrison Smith saying that someone close to Charlie Kirk said that if he turned on Israel, they were going to kill him. All of this matters. And it all creates the reasonable suspicion that this is something that should be looked into. This foreign nexus should be looked into. And the guy who was leading that charge at the highest level of government was Joe Kent. And look at what they've done to Joe Kent. Look at what Joe Kent has come out and said about this Be like, look, we had work to do. There was chatter about this beforehand. There were leads and evidence that needed to be pursued to clear foreign involvement in this Charlie Kirk case. And the FBI said no. That's insane. That is insane.
And that particular one is, given the nature of the Rode Wireless Pro, it has an onboard local recording, which should definitely be there and is tremendously high resolution. And it should have put out a signal, presumably to either the board or to a camera that would have been recorded also. Those two pieces of evidence together would be tremendously useful either in establishing Tyler Robinson's guilt or establishing that something beyond the official theory of the crime took place. By the way, I'm using theory there because theory of the crime is the way it's described. I will, when I put forward something, I'll say hypothesis because it tells you exactly what the toolkit is. But one utility of the exploding mic hypothesis being so widely circulated is it does cause people to stop asking the question about where's the damn mic. And if that mic was active, it produced evidence. That evidence is of very high quality, and we've heard not word one about it as far as I know.
Well, also, look, just one more thing, if I may.
At least the microphone audio is significant evidence in this case. And where is that Rode microphone audio? Who has the Rode microphone audio? I mean, Brett Weinstein says, like, I haven't heard much about it. A bigger deal needs to be made out of this. Yeah, a bigger deal needs to be made out of this. If they want the public to know the truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk, where is that Rode microphone audio? Release it. Like, honestly, if you want to release it through Andrew Wilson, I don't care. Just put it out there. Put it out there.
And the reason why it's not crazy for people to entertain that hypothesis of an exploding mic was because they can't match that gun to the bullet fragments that they claim they found, and also that gun was not the cops who were looking for that gun could not find it. The dog sniffing guns who can find a gun that was shot a week later in the rain couldn't find it, but the moment the FBI shows up, there's the gun. So that's why so you can see why people would think it's plausible, very plausible, that it wasn't that gun, it wasn't that shooter, and it was something else. Maybe it was that shape charge, maybe it was a direct energy weapon, maybe it was so all these things I think need to be 100% explored. And like Brett said earlier, if you do, you're called a mental case, you're called your moralities charge, challenge, stuff like that.
No, so, I want to, sorry, Viva, I'll come right back to you, but I just want to lodge this point. If we had a functional FBI that was actually interested in investigating what happened during this crime, then the question about how long the crime scene remained cordoned off would be as you describe it. But the problem is you don't have an FBI. You have an FBI that after Butler was washing the roof.
Washing the
frickin' roof. So the point is...
Amen. If you had a Department of Justice that pursued justice, we wouldn't be having these issues. You have an FBI that after Butler was washing the roof. You have an FBI that after Charlie Kirk was assassinated was paving over the crime scene, excavating and paving over it. And as they're about to get to, you have an FBI that said that nobody was on the roof because it was too sloped.
We don't have an FBI. I don't know why that is or how it happened. But
worse than with Butler, by the way, and this is a point that I put out, is I don't blame people for going. I call it the conspiratorial psychosis because I think at some point it stops being productive and it starts being harmful for the individual and for the truth. When I can't blame people for going down this conspiracy psychosis because you had this FBI. It's not Biden's FBI.
In fairness, there are people that certainly go too far. There are. To give Viva credit, I'm trying to be graceful here. People do go too far. I agree.
You that Thomas Crooks had no social media footprint, and then when Tucker Carlson and Brianna Morello report that he did, instead of addressing it, they create an FBI response thing on X to go out and try to discredit Tucker Carlson, Brianna Morello, and Miranda Devine. And so,
oof. Viva's calling out Graham Allen. Did you guys hear that? After the FBI told us that Thomas Crooks, the almost assassin of President Trump, told us he did not have a social media footprint, Tucker Carlson went out and found his social media footprint, and instead of just communicating that, instead of telling us the truth, what do? They hire Graham Allen to come create the FBI rapid response account on X to discredit Tucker Carlson. Oh, and isn't it funny? Graham Allen, Benny Johnson, Brandon Tatum, the whole Turning Point USA crew. Turning Point USA, Andrew Kolvet, Erika Kirk. This is who they're all a part of. And this is why people just... This is why the everyday American person is just like, you're not with us anymore. You're not with us anymore.
They don't like hearing it, but a lot of the propensity to believe whatever the hell people want is facilitated by what this administration and the DOJ has done to eviscerate any trust that anyone thought they were going to have in this iteration of the institution. And it allows people to believe whatever the hell they want because it's a post-truth world right now. They don't even have to have evidence to substantiate it.
That's why I'm pleading with people to use a scientific toolkit, because the point is, okay, absent an FBI, you need to exert logical discipline over how you process the evidence. And what I see amongst those who are focused on conspiracy is anything that would contribute to your view of the crime is promoted as true, rather than some sort of an evaluation about which of these things actually are evidence, which of these anomalies are of a standard magnitude, And if I can connect back to the anomalies with the Butler shooting. Okay, in Butler, they told us the reason that roof wasn't covered was that it was too steep. One of the craziest things that's ever been said. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
But
a sloped roof.
Here again, though, we don't have a sloped roof. We have a perfectly flat roof. Has the person who decided not to cover the roofs been fired? Who is that person? Why is there not a discussion?
Has the person who decided not to cover the roofs been fired? Has anybody asked that question? Like, okay, the FBI or the Secret Service telling us that there was no coverage on that roof because it was too sloped. You guys know what that is? We have a term for that now. It's Fed slop. It's BS. It's crap coming from our federal authorities who just are unwilling to take accountability, or they're trying to cover something up. Like, this is the logical thought process of your government lying to you is, what are you covering up? What are you not telling us? This is not complicated. This is what logical people think. Illogical people just take it and continue to just eat it up.
My understanding is it was campus security, and it wasn't. Now, I understand that people blaming.
Wait. Charlie Kirk and TPUSA were paying for a top-notch security team that somehow allowed campus security to decide whether the roofs were covered?
Campus, one step above mall police, campus security. One step above mall police.
Well, but I'm just double checking if it was campus or city police. But that's where I say, like, yeah, that's where, again, if there's a cover-up or a failure to pursue, if it seems to me clear that if you...
Campus police. Campus police. UVU police. This is the message. This is the alleged truthful message between Charlie Kirk and his security team, according to Turning Point USA and Andrew Wilson. Just so you are aware, I will be strict with allowing people in our bubble. I can't have distractions in there, as we spoke of. We are here for one priority. Law enforcement has been fully supportive and has agreed toy security plan and posture. Tomorrow's event will be covered by both my team and Campus PD. That's campus police. If additional support is required, patrol units will be available. Hey, let's make sure we get the roof covered above Charlie. Campus PD's on it. They've got it. Brian Harpole says, look at the text message. Look at the text message. They said they got it. That's what he does to Sean Ryan. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? How about you're getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to keep this one man, this one priority safe? So why don't you go take some ownership and go get your ass on the roof and make sure that nobody's up there? It's a great question. How does a roof go uncovered after Butler? A roof goes uncovered after Butler if you're trying to let somebody on the freaking roof, okay? How do you have the head of security who's supposed to be coordinating all this, whoever the hell is talking to Charlie Kirk right here in these messages? As Brett Weinstein said, how are they still working for you? How is Erika Kirk? How are you not blowing up the UVU Police Department? Suing the UVU Police Department for not doing their jobs. How are you not suing Brian Harpole? You're suing Candace Owens. Like, what are you doing? I don't get it. I just don't understand. You don't really want the truth about what happened to your husband, to Charlie, like to the person you guys say is your best friend. It really seems like you don't. Because so many people who have no agenda whatsoever just want to know the truth about what happened to Charlie. With no agenda. There's nothing inorganic about like me, what I am talking about here. I am not paid by anybody. I get some sponsors on here so I can make some money. You get paid the YouTube ad revenue, whatever. Like, it's literally me with a freaking camera sitting here talking on YouTube, just wanting to know the truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk. Because I care. That's it. Because I just care about what happened to him. Normal people who just care, who have no agenda whatsoever, who just want to know the truth, are just wondering about all of these things and just can't understand why you won't just be forthcoming, why you won't just be honest, why it seems like all you care about is about more political and cultural power. And then it's like, and you're hiring a whole swarm of people to come after anybody who's wondering these things, trying to saying that we're leftists. Like, oh, you're the same leftist that wanted to kill Charlie. It's like, what is wrong with you people? What's wrong with you? We got to wrap it up with some comments today. But before we do that, you guys, you got to get through a sponsor of today's channel, which is Cove Pure and their water purification system. I hope that you're not drinking unclean water. It's too important, guys. It's too important for our health. guys all know that America is celebrating its 250th anniversary, and despite all of this political back and forth, I truly believe this is the greatest country on earth. One that is worth fighting for, especially it's worth fighting to keep America one nation under God. That's what we're doing here on this platform. In fact, America can only be great if it remains one nation under God. But here's the crazy part. 250 years later, and we're still here drinking whatever the government decided to put into our water. Fluoride for your teeth, chlorine to keep things clean. Well, that's not a decision that I want someone else making for me or my family, which is why I use Cove Pure to purify my water. Over 209 million Americans are on fluoridated water right now. And here's what the science shows. A recent study confirmed that fluoride exposure is linked to lower IQ scores in children. And that's not a fringe study. That's from JAMA Pediatrics, one of the most respected medical journals in the world. And chlorine, that isn't even the worst part. It's what happens when it reacts with natural particles in the water from plants and soil. It creates chemical byproducts called THMs, which the government itself calls probable human carcinogens, linked to disruption of your gut and cancer. Sure, states are moving on this. Utah and Florida ban fluoride, but that process takes years. Your kids, your family, they're drinking this water now, today. You need something that works right now. And that's exactly what Cove Pure is. They're certified to remove up to 99% of contaminants, fluoride, THMs, pharmaceuticals, PFAs. Anything that isn't water gets filtered out. I love the Cove Pure system. I obviously believe in drinking clean water. In fact, I believe it to be one of the most important things that you and your family can do from a dietary perspective. But I also love the hot and cold feature for this specific Cove Pure system. So don't wait for the government to catch up. Take back control of your water. And in honor of America's 250th, Cove Pure is giving my audience $250 off if you use my link, covepure.com/Costello. Don't wait. That's COVEPURE.com/Costello. One of the comments here. So I'm sorry, I got too fired up. I forgot that I had to get an ad read in today. That's my bad. I love this comment though. Lady Ag knew, don't drink water with Fed slop in it. 100%. That's it. You got to filter all that crap out. Pretty funny. Cove Pure helps us do that, right? Get all the crap that the government says is okay to have in our water. Get it out of there because it's not. Because it's not. And they don't care about your health. They don't. You got to take your health you got to be your own advocate. You got to be your own advocate. You got to do your own research. You got to be your own advocate. There's a lot of talk about that in today's culture. Heather, thank you for gifting a Zach Costello membership. Thank you so much. And then Dima, who, my goodness, I have two starred messages here. You gifted 20 and 20? Oh my gosh. That's incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. If you guys got a membership from Dima or Heather, you guys owe them some thanks. They had to cover the crime scene with 33 planters. I've seen that. I've counted them. I think that's right. I think there actually are 33 planters that they put there, because 32 is an insufficient number, of course, to purify the altar? Question mark. I guess so. I guess so. It's got to be It's got to be 33. It's got to be 33 planters. Breaking news in follow-up to your Honduras Gate coverage. There is a pregnant lawyer in Bolivia who survived a public assassination attempt. The father arrested is Brad Parscale's business partner. When she survived, the government said no armed guards in her hospital room. There's another one here. Thank you for these super chats, by the way, and thanks for the donations. Really appreciated. She provided evidence the father planned her assassination because she was going public. Then she rattled off her list of allegations, including Parscale as a CIA agent handling high-profile political assets in South America and disinformation campaigns. Huh. Wow. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. I will definitely look more into this. Wow. Holy moly. Brad Parscale's business partner is the father who was arrested for planning this lawyer's assassination? Oh my gosh. Wow. What a comment. Holy moly. Yeah, I'll look more into that. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Zach Loeb, love, I assume, how passionate you are about this and having B and C's back. Keep pushing and sticking up for the cause. Jesus is the truth. Keep going, Max. Thank you for that. I will continue to do so. I consider it to be, the pursuit of truth, come what may. That's what we're going for here. It's all about the Greater Israel Project. Last is Iran. Yep. I think that is what it's about. This isn't just in America. Israel does this all over the world. Look what happened here in the UK with Princess Diana. Ooh. Yeah, it's all over the world. I didn't mean to say that it was just in America. I think that those cases exist all over the world. I think that's what the data was being presented as, not just here in America. Oh, Princess Diana? We're going to go down that. We're going to go down that rabbit hole. Oh, man. Then we got Dima here. Thank you so much. We've got so many questions needing answers. Why didn't they preserve the obvious evidence? The microphone, the car, the necklace, the paver emergency, the cop's body cam, the camera SD cards, Charlie's shirt. They're testing our intelligence, and it's really pissing us off. Yeah, it is. One of the things that I'll bring up here, because I've heard this said on multiple occasions, is that, look, the criticism of Joe Kent. So when you bring up the fact that, like, Joe Kent said there were more leads that needed to be pursued, so they're not giving us evidence that should be evidence. So when people are like, show me the evidence that Israel was involved in the Charlie Kirk assassination, or show me the evidence this is bigger than Tyler Robinson, you have the director of national counterterrorism saying that no, there were leads that needed to be pursued, there was more work that needed to be done, and they shut it down. Like, what do you say to that? And their answer for the most part is, well, Joe Kent's a liar. It's like, oh, okay. So your argument can be that this government official, this high-ranking government official who said more work needed to be done, whose job it was to analyze all of the intelligence and evidence that was being presented, or that was being gathered and found by the different investigative agencies, you're going to say that he's just a liar, and that's how you're going to dismiss that? It's like, okay, then I'm just going to say, I'm going to say that Officer Bagley and Brian Mitchell's, I think they're liars. It's like, if we're just going to say people are liars who say things that we don't like, or that say things that are counter to our narrative, then we can do that. We can play that game. I think Officer Bagley's a liar. Okay. Thanks, Zach Mods, and number one supporter Dima. Yes, thank you to all of those that you just mentioned, for sure. And then R.I.P. Dolly Parton. Yeah, I saw you guys in the chat here talking about how Dolly Parton passed away. I'm sorry to hear that. May she rest in peace. Rest in peace. R.I.P. Have a blessed day. You all have a blessed day as well. All right. That's going to be all for today. I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. I'm Zach Costello.